I'm going to give you 3 tips from all the years I have learned about vegetable garden to help you guys starting a vegetable garden. Selecting your garden spot is very important. You want to make sure that you get an area that has full sun. So many times I've seen people put their vegetable garden in a partially shaded area underneath a tree, a canopy. You know, that may look nice, may be where you think you want it in your yard, but it's all about the vegetables. It's not about you working out there in the garden, being in the shade. And all your vegetables love full sun. So you got to make sure when you pick that spot in your garden that it gets full sun, at least 10 to 12 hours of sunlight during the day, during the spring and the growing season. Another thing I think is really important is setting a boundary to your garden. Whether it be a fence, whether it be a hedge, or anything that gives you a boundary or lines that you want to keep your garden inside of. Now, I use a little small fence, and the reason I use this fence is because I have a rabbit problem, and that fence is dual purpose. It gives me a boundary on my garden, but also keeps those little critters out of my garden during the fall of the year when rabbits get hungry and come in here and just eat up all my plants. So using that fence right there is great because it gives me an idea of how big my garden is, and it makes me have to plan ahead to make sure I use up this area here real efficiently, but also I don't get carried away and plant more garden than I should, because that's a common thing, especially with new gardeners, is you overplant. So when you have those boundaries, heck, it looks nice. You can even use a hedge or flowers or anything, but give yourself a boundary to work inside of to make sure that you're utilizing that space area and that you have a plan and you don't overplant and you don't get ahead of yourself. Water is very important. So you want to make sure you got water convenient to your garden. If you have that perfect spot picked out and you don't have water close by, you may want to run you a water line underneath the ground, a permanent water ground close to your garden. Having water easily accessible to your garden makes you water more often and when you should. It's just human nature. If we got to drag a hose 100 foot and keep it rolled up out of the way, or we got to tote water, we're just not going to water as much as we should. So you have it really convenient, so it's easy to get to, and put that sprinkler out there or hook up to that drip line, or to water at any time those plants need it. You're just more apt to do it when the plant needs it. So make sure that you got water close by and easily accessible to the garden. Taking a soil sample of your garden. Now this is a tough one here because everybody struggles with this because we get ahead of ourselves and we don't want to take the time to get that soil sample done. Now most of your universities will do soil samples for you, send them back to you for anywhere to $10, $15. If you don't have anywhere in your state that does that, there's some private labs out there that can do it. The cost is not much. It doesn't take much time to do, but it takes some time to get that sample back. Now, having a soil sample of your garden is a huge importance, because not only are you going to know your nutrient levels in your soil, your nutrient load, but also you're going to know your pH of your soil, which is huge. Because I don't care how well you fertilize, I don't care how well you take care of your garden or how much you water and baby your plants, if that pH is off, you're going to have problems and you're not going to be successful. Now, pH is a simple term that actually means how well the soil is able to exchange the nutrients from the soil to your plant. So having that pH right allows those nutrients to be available to the plant. If it's too high or too low, it's going to lock up those nutrients and that plant is going to starve regardless of what you do to them. So it's so important to get that pH right. So many times I've heard people say, you know, my neighbor just told me to add some lime to my soil. And that's one of the worst mistakes we can make, is listening to that good neighbor that's trying to be helpful and giving you some gardening advice without knowing exactly what your pH is. When you get that pH, you can look at it and see where you're at and see where you need to be. Get a trusted source to help you try to adjust it accordingly, so it's in the optimal range so you can grow your plants. Tip number 3. Grow vegetables that are easy and that you're going to be successful with starting out, such as squash, green beans, cucumbers, and even potatoes. Some crops or some vegetables you probably don't want to try growing when you're just beginning or starting out. And that would be things like heirloom tomatoes, peppers, or even some of your corns, your sweet corns, such as your quad sweets and your triple sweets. So if you want to know more about our products or you want to learn more about vegetable garden, check out these videos.